mortgage lenders had it, borrowers had it, media had it. Everybody thought house prices could go nothing but up, or at least they couldn't go down a lot. And once you had that belief, and it was nationwide, it didn't make any difference what you lent on a house, because if the guy couldn't pay, you'd sell it at a profit anyway, or you wouldn't lose much money. So you had $11 trillion of residential mortgage debt built on this theory that who was borrowing it, what their income was, really wasn't that important, because the house itself had to go up in price. And when that tumbled, and houses which might have been worth $22 trillion at the peak are worth maybe $4 or $5 trillion less, it's a huge amount out of people's net worth. It's the biggest asset most people have. And then secondarily, all of these instruments that were built on it, which people didn't understand too well, started toppling to various degrees in value, and then that exposed other things. I mean, it was like, some kid saying, the emperor has no clothes, and then after he says that, he says, well, on top of that, the emperor doesn't have any underwear either. I mean, and various layers have been, and they interact. When people get scared, they change their buying habits. When they quit buying as much, people lay off. We are in a very, very vicious negative feedback cycle. It will end, but believe me, I mean, I don't want this to be the last line of the movie. I had a line in my annual report that America's best days lie ahead, and we can talk about why that is. And that is the final answer. But how fast we get there depends enormously on not only the wisdom of government policy, but the degree to which it's communicated properly. People, when you have a Pearl Harbor, you have to know that the nation is going to be united on December 8th to take care of whatever comes up. And we have little squabbles, otherwise we put them aside. Everybody goes to work in defense plants. We start building planes. We start building ships, even though they're not going to be ready tomorrow. People join. The Army doesn't blame the Navy because there were too many ships in Pearl Harbor and it should have happened. The Army doesn't say, well, it was your fault, so we're not going to send our troops. None of that sort of thing. We got united, and we really need that now.
Do you think that there has not been that to that extent? There's not enough of a united front right now?
Yeah, I think, and I can understand why, because Pearl Harbor itself, you knew exactly what had happened, and we'd wiped out a good bit of the fleet and all of that, and people knew in a general way what had to be done, and they knew they had to respond to a leader who was unquestionably the commander-in-chief. And so you didn't have to start congressional hearings on December 8th, that were going to last for weeks while all of the commanders and the various people were in various ways pilloried or taunted or whatever about why in the world did they let this happen. And the Republicans didn't say, you Democrats have been in since 1933 and it's all your fault. None of that. I mean, people said, we've got to get something done. And they trusted their leadership to do it and put aside mostly the partisan stuff. And we went, and everybody incidentally felt we'd win the war, even though we for the first 6 months Corregidor fell, and we had the death march at Bataan, all kinds of, there was terrible, terrible news. But we knew if we stuck together and we followed leadership, we would prevail.
We're going to have a lot more time to talk about solutions this morning, but in terms of the economy, where do you think it goes from here? What's the best case scenario and the worst case scenario?
Well, it can't turn around on a dime. That doesn't happen. I mean, a lot of stuff works this way. That when 600,000 more people become unemployed last month, that not only affects those 600,000, it affects them terribly, but it affects everybody else. They get scared about losing their jobs. The percentage of people who are scared about losing their jobs in this country is way higher than the actual number they're going to lose them, but they're behaving in an entirely different manner. I mean, they are not going to go into even at Costco or Walmart. Their jewelry departments are way down, but other departments are up, and people. They started saving money for years. We've told them to save money, and now they're saving money, and that's a double whammy. So we've had this great economic machine, like nothing the world's ever seen, and it's started sputtering a little. And we said, well, maybe we better slow it down and see what happens. And it sputters more. And what we may not realize is there's an interaction that the slower you run the machine, the more it sputters. So it's a job to get it working again, and it won't happen fast, Becky. I mean, and unemployment will lag at the end, the actual
We're
turnaround.
already talking about unemployment at 8%. Where do you see it headed?
I can't name a number because, frankly, it depends to an extent on the wisdom of government policies. It's going to go higher. It's probably going to go a fair amount higher, but on the other hand, 5 years from now, I can guarantee you that the machine will be running fine, but I'd like to get there a lot faster than 5 years, and we can.
And, Joe, did you want to jump in here, too?
You just said something interesting, Mr. Buffett, and that is it depends on the wisdom of our policies. And I understand, you know, in a time of war, everyone rallying behind the commander-in-chief, but obviously there are differences on what the wisdom of our policies should be from here on out. Now, the loyal opposition is going to be, as it's called, will be behind the president, but certainly you could see that if people think there's some wrong-minded policies that are being rushed into to law at this point because of the crisis, I mean, it's the loyal opposition's duty to say what they feel, right?
Right, and Joe, if you're in a war, and we really are on an economic war, there's a obligation to the majority to behave in ways that don't go around inflaming the minority. If on December 8th, or maybe it's December 7th, when Roosevelt convened Congress to have a vote on the war, he didn't say, I'm throwing in about 10 of my pet projects, and you didn't have Congress people putting on 8,000 earmarks onto to the declaration of war in 1941. So I think that the minority they really do have an obligation to support things that in general are clearly designed to fight the war in a big way. And I don't think you should, I don't think before D-Day on June 5th you ought to have, or June 1st maybe, have a congressional hearing and have 535 people give their opinion about where the troops should land and, you know, what the weather should be and how many troops should land and all of that. And I think after June 6th, you don't have another hearing that says, gee, if we just landed, you know, a mile north.
You might not have fixed. You might not have fixed global warming the day after D-Day, Warren.
Absolutely, and I think that the Republicans have an obligation to regard this as an economic war and to realize you need one leader and in general support of that. But I think that the Democrats, and I voted for Obama and I strongly support him and I think he's the right guy, but I think they should not use this when they're calling for unity on a question this important. They should not use it to roll the Republicans all. I think a lot of things should be. Job one is to win the war, the economic war. Job two is to win the economic war, and job three. And you can't expect people to unite behind you if you're trying to jam a whole bunch of things down their throat. So I would absolutely say for the interim till we get this one solved, I would not be pushing a lot of things that are are contentious. And I also would do no finger pointing whatsoever. I would not say, George, the previous administration got us into the. Forget it. I mean, the Navy made a mistake at Pearl Harbor and had too many ships there. But the idea that we'd spend our time after that, pointing fingers at the Navy, we needed the Navy. So I would no finger pointing, no vengeance.